Hello everyone, back to today's second video. We're going to have a look at the weather for next week to 10 days. For today's second video, which could take us to around the 14th of September. So we're already heading into the middle of the month with the week to 10 day video update time frame. Now we'll be able to extend out beyond that, the extended CFS, which runs to 4 weeks, a month away. So that takes us to the end of September, really. We're going to begin with the latest situation in the tropics. It's all happening. Look at all that's going on in the tropical Atlantic. That's what we're going to talk about first of all. But before I get on with that, just say that the 5-day forecast has been released. So it'll be a fairly autumnal and quite changeable 5 days coming up. Have a look at that and see what's going on there. So where to start with this? So shall we start with the yellow X here that we have over the coast of Africa? So that one is disturbance 2, and there's a 0% chance of cyclone formation with value in the next 48 hours, but a 60% chance in the next 5 days. They're saying a tropical wave is forecast to emerge later today over the far eastern tropical Atlantic west of Africa. Environmental conditions are forecast to become mostly conducive for development late this week, and this system has the potential to become a tropical depression over the weekend or early next week while it moves westward to west-northwestward. That's one to keep an eye on in a few days' time. So we've also got Gabrielle just here. So we've got Tropical Storm Gabrielle, that is currently giving 40 mile an hour winds. So you've got a central pressure of 105 millibars. It's moving northwestwards at 10 miles an hour. If we click on Gabrielle, we can see what's forecast to happen with this one. So it's forecast to stay as a tropical storm to the start of next week. That's the current position of Gabrielle just there, and forecast to move in that sort of direction. By the time we get through to Monday, Gabrielle is going to be somewhere between Bermuda and the Azores, by the look of it, somewhere around there. Remember, with these cones, it could be anywhere from around there to there, so that's just kind of like the central area that it could be, but it could be either side of that central area. Anyway, tropical storm Gabrielle looks like it's going to stay sort of in the ocean and not impact anywhere inland for the time being anyway. They've also got this orange X just here. So that one is disturbance 1. It has a 50% chance of cyclone formation in the next 40 hours. So a small area of low pressure located just east of Bermuda is producing disorganised showers and thunderstorms. Some development of this system is possible, and a tropical depression could form in the next couple of days as the disturbance moves northwestwards away from Bermuda. Afterward, upper-level winds are forecast to become unfavourable for tropical cyclone formation. It's got a 50% chance in the next 5 days and the next 2 days of becoming a tropical storm. We've got Fernand over here towards Mexico, in the Gulf of Mexico. So that's tropical storm Fernand. It's giving 40 mile an hour winds with a central pressure of 1,000 millibars. It's moving west at 6 miles an hour. This is what's forecast to happen with Fernand. So this one is going to move into Mexico as a tropical storm. By the time we get through to tomorrow, it should be down to a tropical depression. It will move further inland, and it will sort of die a death, I suppose. And then finally, of course, we have still Hurricane Dorian. This is the current situation with Hurricane Dorian, so giving 105 mile an hour winds, and it's moving northwestwards at 8 miles an hour. So you remember the last couple of days, that's been pretty much stationary. It is beginning to get a bit of a move on now. It's starting to move northwards, and it is picking up a bit of speed as well as it's doing so. So it's gone from sort of moving at 1 mile an hour, basically not moving at all, to now moving at 8 miles an hour. Over the next few days, I think this is going to start to pick up speed as it moves northwards off the eastern seaboard of the States. This is what the forecast position of Hurricane Dorian is forecast to do. So that's the current position now, moving northwards and picking up speed quite dramatically, so that as we get through to Sunday, it's gone to a post-hurricane and get through to Monday, actually it's up here off Newfoundland, and by then it is a post-tropical storm. It'll get caught up in the jet stream and start to move in that direction through the early part of next week. The latest advisory with Hurricane Dorian is this from the National Hurricane Centre, so lots to read on that. But the main takeaway is that key message number one: life-threatening storm surge conditions and dangerous winds are expected along portions of the Florida East Coast and the coast of Georgia, South Carolina and North Carolina, regardless of the exact track of Dorian Centre. Water levels could rise well in advance of the arrival of strong winds. Residents in these areas should follow advice given by local emergency officials. Point number two is risk of heavy rain. Risk of wind and rain impacts along portions of the Virginia coast and southern Chesapeake Bay are increasing. So residents in those areas are told to continue to monitor progress of Dorian. And point number three, flash flood threat will spread up the southeast US coast today and Thursday, then across coastal mid-Atlantic region on Friday. There is a high risk of flash flooding on Thursday across coast sections of northeast South Carolina and into southern North Carolina. For the next 24 hours, it's going to be at around 105 mile an hour gusts, so that keeps it at around a Category 2 hurricane, I think. Then go through to the end of the week and into weekend, and it goes down to Category 1, and by the time you get through to the end of the weekend and into start of next week, it's gone post-tropical, and that will be the end then of what was at one point Category 5 Hurricane Dorian. Then we'll wait and see what other developments we get in the tropical Atlantic, of course, because it looks like we have entered into a very, very active phase at the moment. So I don't think we'll have to wait too long before our next hurricane appears. Right, come back close to home. These are the GFS upper air temperature and precipitation ensembles. Next couple of weeks, we're at Liverpool today. So red line here is the 30-year upper air temperature average for Liverpool. And we're starting off just there. Cooler than average at the moment. It's pretty chilly out there. And it's going to stay pretty cool now through to the weekend. Get a little bit of a tick up there at the end of the weekend and start of next week. But overall, for next week, looks like it's basically going to be cooler than average. There's a little bit of up and down going on, but overall it looks like we're cooler than average for the next week. Heading in towards the middle part of September and beyond into the second half of the month, there is a few indications there in the GFS ensembles today that we might be starting to see evidence of a slightly warmer situation beginning to develop, a slightly warmer spell possibly starting to develop around the middle part of the month. That's a long way off. It's in the extended range. It's beyond day 10, but it does look as though there's a little bit of a warming trend appearing there within the GFS ensembles into the second half of September. Precipitation-wise, it looks quite unsettled for the next week. Definitely will be spells of rain coming through and showers in between. As we get this rather warmer spell, perhaps beginning to develop around the middle part of the month, you might see signs it's also going a bit drier as well, at least for a few days. Remember, that's all extended rain stuff, but we talked about it in the video yesterday, just a few hints perhaps of higher pressure in around 10 days or so's time. For the moment, though, it's going to be cool, so the temperature anomaly from the 4th to the 12th of September is below average, not just for the UK and Ireland, but through most parts of Western Europe as well. Precipitation anomaly is close to average, not a particularly big deviation either way, probably rather unsettled in northern and eastern areas. That's how the GFS is looking for Saturday. So high pressure is just out to our west-southwest, and we're bringing this rather cool, showery, northerly wind. Into Sunday, the ridge is sort of strengthening close to the coast. So we do get a bit of a weather window over the weekend of dry weather. It will be quite cool over the weekend, but should be mainly dry. By Monday, the next weather system's moving in. That's likely to be bringing cloud and outbreaks of rain with it from off the Atlantic. That one clears out of the way on Tuesday. A little bit of a reach there ahead of this next area of low pressure, misses the low pressure that does contain the remains of Hurricane Dorian to the south of Greenland. That moves in into Wednesday, probably bringing wet and windy weather to northern parts of the country. We'll have to wait and see how much rain there is from that down in the south. And then we move up towards day 10 and we find a ridge starting to build a little bit, certainly across southern parts of the country. And so by the time you get to day 10, which is Saturday the 14th of September, high pressure is beginning then to take over across the UK and Ireland. So that's a slightly drier spell perhaps turning up around the middle part of the month. That high sticks with us to Sunday the 15th, starts to draw in some warmer air from the southeast as well. But it looks rather temporary. It's not long at all before we're back to low pressure coming back in from off the Atlantic, and we look rather unsettled really as we go into the very extended range of the GFS. It gets us to Friday, 20th of September. It does look quite unsettled. So a few days, perhaps around mid-month, of something drier and warmer, and then probably going back to something unsettled again as we move into the third week of September. That's for GM, so again, rather showery as going from Friday through to Saturday, but this ridge will be building in during the weekend, bringing something a little bit drier, although it will be quite cool, especially so at night. By Monday, the next lows coming in off the Atlantic, that will be bringing showers or longer spells of rain. When we go through next week, looking quite unsettled really, low pressure never too far away, although the southern parts of the country probably a reasonable amount of dry weather, particularly in the second half of next week. In the north it does look like it carries on being quite unsettled. So we look at day 10, which is Saturday the 14th of September. High pressure then is out to the west of the country. And then finally we've got the ECM WF, again rather showery and quite cool from Friday through to Saturday, but ridge building through the country over the weekend. Into the start of next week, cloud rain extends down across the country, so unsettled start to next week with quite a bit of rain around. But in the second half of next week, there's the remains of Hurricane Dorian, of course, up there. So that's bringing cloud outbreaks of rain to northern parts of the country, but down in the south, this has been a consistent theme with the ECM for the last few days. Down in the south, the ridge is building, so probably the second half of next week turns mainly dry and quite warm, I would have thought, for England and Wales. That will get temperatures probably into below 20 Celsius by day 10. Again, the high pressure is just pulling out to west of us, starting to allow cooler air to begin to move in around the top of the ridge from the northern part of the Atlantic. Certainly the second half of next week and up to the middle of September, looking a little bit more anticyclonic on the model output today. These are the scenarios that are on the table within the ECM ensembles today at day 10 from the Icelandic Met Office. This is for the 14th of September. We have 15 members of the ECM ensembles with above average heights over to the south of the country. Below average heights are up to the north. So a lot of dry weather on offer with that, mostly dry for much of the UK. It does include the ECM control run as well. Then we've got 13 just here but look more unsettled. They have the above average heights out in the middle of the Atlantic. Below average heights up to the north of us, a little bit more of a northwesterly influence from the wind and from the jet stream, and probably a bit more showery too. 13 just here have low pressure to our north and high pressure just to the south of us, so probably a little bit unsettled for northern areas and southern areas. Fair amount of dry weather, you would have thought. And then 10, which does include the ECM operation run, and that's the run we was just looking at, basically with high pressure over the top of the country. That is the driest scenario out of all of them, really. There's only 10 going for high pressure as centrally located over the UK as that, but many of those options do show some influence from high pressure anyway by the middle part of September. In the more extended range, this is how we're looking. This gets us to 2 weeks' time. It's the 19th of September. So we have 14 members of the ECM ensembles taking a ridge out to the west of us and dropping a trough of low pressure into the east. So obviously that's cool and unsettled. 10 have low pressure to the north-northeast of Scotland, a ridge in the middle of the Atlantic. They're quite cool and unsettled too. 9 with low pressure to our east and north and just generally looking a little bit showery. Another 9 with low pressure to the north and high pressure to the south. That's probably being mainly dry over to southern areas, but probably showery in the north. These 6 are probably the most settled. They have above average heights to our east and northeast, and then a further 3 with a mid-Atlantic ridge and low pressure over and to the east of the country. They're cool and unsettled. Probably more unsettled scenarios as we get into second half of September. So any period of high pressure around the middle of the month at the moment looks like it's probably going to be quite short-lived, and is probably a response to bringing Hurricane Dorian, or remains of Hurricane Dorian, into the Atlantic with all of the warmth associated with that area of low pressure. We shall see. Finally, just having a look at CFS V2. So these are 500 millibar heights broken down into weekly periods. The first weekly period takes us from the 4th to the 10th of September. The coming week with above average heights to our west, below average heights to the east. So rather showery and quite cool. The wind is in from a north to northwesterly direction. Then we have week 2, which is the 11th to 17th of September. The ridge builds in from the west. Low pressure moves over to the central eastern part of Europe, so that's settling down. Probably still quite cool. Not a heat wave, definitely. The high pressure is centred to our west, so probably quite cool. But I think that will be a little bit drier anyway. Then week 3, this is 18th, 24th of September, begins to take the high pressure north. So signs that the high pressure is beginning to push north up towards Greenland, starting to hint at becoming a bit of a northern blocking type feature, trough of low pressure sinking in over Scandinavia. That's probably still dry-ish, but maybe turning a bit more unsettled. And by the time you get through to week 4, this is the 25th of September to the 1st of October, we've got high pressure back to Greenland and low pressure is in over the UK. That's going to be very cool, unsettled and distinctly autumnal if that comes off. So quite interesting output at the moment, very variable. I think we do have this trend towards higher pressure for the middle of September. We're starting off next week quite unsettled, then probably going something rather drier and probably a little bit warm for the middle part of the month. Not sure it's going to last all that long, though, and as we go into the second half of September, I think the evidence at the moment is to begin to turn things rather more unsettled again, with any high pressure quite quickly getting broken down. But, of course, that's very speculative. It's around a couple of weeks away, so we should wait and see on that. Tomorrow we'll have another week 10-day video update for you as well, so come back for that then. But that's all for now, and thanks for watching.